Hello guys, welcome to our next lesson, which is still on more geometric figures. So we're going to talk about our two learning goals today. So one of them is to describe angles and angle pairs, and the second is to identify and name parts of a circle. In this video, we're only going to be addressing the first learning target. So let's get started. So as you share your ideas, be sure to use mathematical terms and academic vocabulary precisely. That means drop some angle knowledge, drop some fancy vocabulary words that we've been working on. Make note to help you remember the meaning of new words and how they are used to describe in mathematics. So what I want you to do first, I want you to draw 4 angles with different characteristics. So do not draw 4 of the same angle, draw 4 different ones. And you should be thinking of some 4 important ones. And then I want you to describe each angle and name the angles using number and letters. So we learned how to name angles previously, so make sure you have letters when you're drawing your angles. So again, give me 4 different angles. Go. Press pause. So hopefully you drew 4 different angles. You should have drawn an acute angle, an obtuse angle, a right angle, and a straight angle. And so just in each of your angle examples, you can have different letters than me that I have up here. Just make sure you have letters, and then make sure you also have a number on the interior. Okay, so here's an example of an acute angle, an obtuse angle, a right angle. If you wanted to put a little box to represent 90, you could, and then you have a straight angle. Okay, all right, moving on. What we're going to do next, I want you to compare and contrast each pair of angles. And so let's look at our academic vocabulary. When you compare and contrast 2 figures, you're describing how they're alike and how they're different. So we have part A, B, C, and D. Try not to get these 2 confused. So on part A, you're going to be comparing angle 1 and angle 2. How are they similar? How are they different? Same thing on B, comparing this angle, how are they similar, how are they different? Okay, so go ahead and compare and contrast A, B, C, and D. Press pause, and then we'll talk about some answers. So here are some sample answers. Again, you can have something different on your paper, that's totally fine. So on part A, I said that angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. And remember that means they are 180 degrees. And they're also adjacent, they're right next to each other. I said angle 1 is going to be acute while angle 2 is obtuse. So that's kind of how they're different. On part B, I have my top angle, which would be ADB, and then the bottom angle, which is BDC. They're going to be complementary, which means that they add up to 90, hence this box over here, and they're also adjacent. So that's kind of what they have in common. Again, lots of different answers for that one. These are just a few examples. For C, I put that angle DEF and angle RST, they're complementary. So 60 plus 30 is going to give you 90 degrees. So even though they're not touching or adjacent up here, like part B, they are still going to be complementary. And then in fact, they're not adjacent. And so again, adjacent means right beside each other, they're going to be sharing an angle side. Last but not least, we have part D, which is 30 degrees and then 150 degrees. And so when you add those 2 together, they're actually supplementary, which again means they add up to 180 degrees. And these angles are not adjacent. They've got some space in between them. They're not touching. Okay, so that's kind of how we can compare and contrast 2 different kinds of angles. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we're going to move on. All right, number 3, recall that the sum of the measures of complementary angles are 90. And the sum of the measures of supplementary angles are 180. How I keep those 2 straight, because they both have plementary at the end. So supplementary, you can serve supper on a plate, like a waitress, waiter, and it's a flat line. For complementary, if you were to sit straight, your body would make a nice right angle. And so if you're sitting up straight, I'm going to give you a compliment. That's all I got for you. So in the figure below shows 2 intersecting lines, meaning that they're crossing. Name 2 angles that are supplementary to 4. And so again, supplementary means if you put it together, it would make a straight line. So go ahead and tell me what angles do you think would be supplementary to 4? So angle 4 is over here. It's an acute angle, meaning if I'm going to get to 180 degrees, I'm going to need an obtuse angle. So supplementary to angle 4 would be angle 3. And there's actually another one. Angle 5 is also supplementary. Okay, because when I add these two angles together, I'm going to get a straight line going this way, or I can also get a straight line going this way. All right, moving on to part B, explain why the angles you named in part A must have the same measure. Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. All right, so we said angle 3 and angle 5 are supplementary, and so what that means, angle 3 is supplementary to angle 4, so their sum is going to be 180. Okay, so if I add these two angles together, I'm going to get 180 degrees. Okay, I also know that 5 is supplementary to 4, so these two angles are also supplementary, so their sum also has to be 180. Therefore, 3 and 5 have to have the same measurement. Okay, it's kind of like the transitive property from algebra. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we're going to move on. So let's make sure you've got something like that written down. All right, so number 4, we're going to complete the chart by naming all the listed types of angle in each figure. So this first figure is going to correspond with this first table column, and the second figure is going to correspond with that last column. So let's read this map tip up here. Angles can be classified by their measurements. An acute angle, we know, measures greater than 0 but less than 90. A right angle measures exactly 90 degrees. An obtuse angle measures more than 90 but less than 180. And then a straight angle measures 180. So that's kind of some basic vocabulary from middle school. So I want you guys to complete the table as much as you can. So for an example, for acute angles, 9 looks like it's less than 90. So I would say, hey, angle 9 is going to be an acute angle, and angle 8 is also an acute angle. Okay? And you would do the same thing for all over here and here. So complete the table as much as you can to the best of your ability, and then we'll go over some answers. Guys, let's take a look at this left side first. So we already did the acute angles for the left picture. That means the obtuse angles are going to be 7 and 10. Those measurements are both bigger than 90 degrees. Angles with the same measure, we know acute angles are going to have the same measure and obtuse angles are going to have the same measure. So I said angle 8 and angle 9 have the same measure because they're acute, and then angle 7 and angle 10 have the same measure because they're obtuse. All right, supplementary angles, again, they equal 180 degrees. And so there are 4 examples that would be 180 degrees. So first off, you have angle 7 and angle 8. When you combine them, you get a straight line. And then on the flip side, you have angle 9 and angle 10. Okay, so that takes care of that, and that takes care of that. So that's kind of looking from left to right. I can also look up and down. And for example, I can look at 8 and 10 together are going to be 180 degrees and give you a line, as well as 7 and 9. Okay, so that's how we got these two answers down here. So you can look left to right to get supplementary and up and down. And then for complementary, there are none because we have no 90-degree angles. Let me know if you have any questions on that. We're going to talk about the second one, which is kind of harder. For the second one, we have to name it with 3 letters, which kind of, makes it a little bit harder for us. So ABF would be this angle right here. That's an acute angle, less than 90, etc. Now I can do CBD as well. Again, acute angle, smaller than 90. You can also have the order flip-flopped in this. For example, you could have had angle FBA. We can always have the order flipped. The last acute angle would be EBD or DBE. Okay, so those are all of our acute angles. Notice these little angle marks right here I'm doing. That's how we denote an angle symbol. Okay. All right, now looking at obtuse angles. So those are going to be angles bigger than 90. Here's the main one right here, FBE. Okay, then I can also combine 2 angles together to get an obtuse angle. That's probably what we didn't think about. So for example, FBC, FB, and then C. Okay, it's all these two angles on the left combined together to make an obtuse angle. Okay, so that's another example. ABD is another example. That'll give me an obtuse angle, combining that 90-degree angle and the acute angle. Okay, so again, these are just a few examples. I can have another one. See, I could have the order flipped for this angle and say angle D, DBA. So again, same thing but flipped around. Okay, so for obtuse angles, don't forget that you can add two angles together to create that larger angle. All right, angles with the same measurement. So our acute angles are going to have the same measurement, and our obtuse angles are going to have the same measurement. Okay, so they said angle ABF and angle EBD, ABC, CBE. So those are our two 90-degree angles over here. So CBA or ABC, and then also its counterpart CBE. They're also going to be 90 degrees because if this left part is 90 degrees, then the right part also has to be 90 degrees because they create a straight line. So those angles also have the same measurement. And then last but not least, they have ABD listed. So ABD is here in green, and then FBE. So these two angles are both of our obtuse angles, and so they're also going to have the same measurement. Okay. So again, there are multiple answers for this, and so if you want me to check your answer, please let me know. But we're going to move on to supplementary now. And so again, supplementary means adds up to 180. And so I just need an acute angle and an obtuse angle to get that 180. So one example is ABF, which is right here, and then ABD, which is right here. They make this straight line right there. Okay? So that's one example of a supplementary angle. Let's look at this last one. Again, FBE, an obtuse angle, and then DBE, an acute angle. When they put together, they create this straight line right here for a supplementary angle. Okay? So again, check your answers with all of these. Again, they could be in a different order, which makes it hard for you to check. But let me know if you have any questions. All right, last but not least, complementary angles. We do have a 90-degree angle in here, so it will work out. So we have ABF, which is an acute angle, and then CBD. Now this one is a little tricky because complementary we know means 90 degrees, but it is two angles that add to 90. So if you said angle ABC, you are incorrect because that's one angle that is 90. Okay, so these two angles together would form 90 degrees. The other set of angles would be DBE and then CBD. This is probably the most common. Both of these angles together are going to add up to 90 degrees. You have an acute angle and an acute angle. Okay, so for supplementary angles, you need one acute, one obtuse, or two right angles. And then for complementary, you need two smaller acute angles, this top angle, this bottom angle, to create that 90-degree angle. Okay, so again, it's much easier with numbers, definitely more challenging with letters because orders can be vice versa. Okay, so we definitely need some practice on this. So hopefully by the end of this lesson, you are able to describe angles and the angle pairs. And so I'm going to end this lesson with a joke. Complementary angle, look, it's 90 degrees. He says, wow, you look so cute today. Because he's giving her a compliment. All right. Thanks for watching.